month's S&D press conference. It's great to see you here in Strasbourg and of course to be in touch with you online. Today for our group, our S&D Vice-President Pedro Marques will speak. He is responsible for foreign affairs, social affairs, political planning and communication for the group. Pedro, you have the floor.
Thank you, Uta. Yes, this is working. So first of all, morning to you all once more. Indeed, a very important plenary and clearly against such possibility. Now, would like to recall your attention for the very important commemoration, remembrance today, 10 years after the shipwreck in Lampedusa. It was a tragic moment. It was also a moment in which Europe looked strongly, and I would say from that on the situation changed in terms of the attention of the Europeans regarding the situation in the Mediterranean, but unfortunately after hundreds of deaths in that shipwreck, not enough change at European level regarding our migration and asylum policies. 10 years on this strategy, from this strategy, we still lack a permanent and effective European search and rescue operation fully effective in the Mediterranean. We still need safe and legal pathways for migration. We still need the Pact on Migration, finally. What we don't need is this kind of agreements with dictators, with authoritarian regimes, like the one that was attempted by the Commission with Tunisia just recently. Mr. Weber was keen to follow on this and to go even to Tunisia and commemorate this and say we need to expand it to other countries rapidly. Well, finally, this didn't solve anything. More people arrived to our shores, namely to Lampedusa, after this attempt to an agreement with Sayed, and now Sayed even refused the charity of the European Union, after he also refused a mission from this parliament to be there. By the way, that was to be led by an EPP coordinator in AFET. Well, it's apparently not for this kind of regimes and for Mr. Sayed to have democratic scrutiny of this kind of agreements. We said from the beginning from our side this was not a way to go. The way to go, by the way, we have a debate tomorrow on migration, a key debate on migration. We are happy to have a discussion tomorrow. The way to go is indeed to fully instate the right to asylum, to manage our borders. Of course we need to manage our borders, but we need to instate the right to asylum also through proper solidarity between the member states, also through solidarity to the frontline countries. So that's the kind of discussion we'll have tomorrow. We hope that finally the Council unblocks from their side their positions and their mandates so that you can actually have the trialogues to continue on the Pact on Migration, and particularly their position on the crisis regulation. We hope the Italians do not drag their feet now, do not create new problems, the Italian government. Mrs. Meloni, I think by now, 1 year after a government, it's clear to her, I hope, that only her rhetoric and her populistic rhetoric will not do anything good for the situation in the Mediterranean or for the arrivals in Italy. And it's for us puzzling how Mr. Tajani, it's again DPP, now attacks the proposals at the table on the Pact on Migration instead of pushing for a full adoption of the mandate and for the conclusion of the trialogues on the Pact on Migration. That's the kind of debate we'll certainly have tomorrow. It will be interesting to see what EPP says about the Pact on Migration. Is it the more moderate version we get some days or some weeks, or is this new Tajani version about renegotiating again the Pact on Migration, which would be completely unacceptable. And then there's a topical debate tomorrow about housing. There was a debate yesterday about the social precariousness in Europe, but there's a debate tomorrow because we requested a debate on housing, because there's a huge cost of living crisis in Europe going on, and particularly the situation on housing is simply very dire for the European families. Even for the middle class families, for the ones that are in employment at this stage, the situation is indeed dire. People are suffering for paying for their rents or for their mortgages. If somebody gets divorced, it suddenly becomes a huge housing and social problem for these families. Women are suffering even more because of that. If you lose your job, you are immediately at risk of becoming homeless. This is actually the reality in many member states at this stage, in many cities throughout Europe. So what we'll be calling is for more European support to the national strategies for housing, which means more pressure on the member states to use every available funds for housing, which means changing eventually the state aid regulations so that we can have better support from the national governments to any housing project that addresses this failure, this current crisis, market failure on housing, more regulation to avoid speculation on the housing market, and certainly more support, even at European level, towards tackling the homelessness crisis that is also being experienced in many member states. We will also have a debate on the visa scandal in Poland, and it's again a good opportunity to go back to the difference between the rhetorics of this far right, of these populists, and then their practices. These corrupted regimes and these corrupted practices by some authorities, they come to Europe, they brag about stopping the migrants, etc., and then they'll sell their visas for those migrants that come to their shores, to their borders. And this is a huge example of how this populist approach and this corrupt approach to democracy in Europe does not work. And this is something that we are sure that the Polish people already were expressing in the streets in Warsaw just a few days ago, and we are sure that they will also evaluate and express when they go to vote in a few days from now. So these are important debates we have in front of us this week. I also imagine that you have important and interesting questions to put to me in these next few minutes. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot, Pedro. Now it's time for your questions. I see several hands raised from in the room, and I also have a question online. So we start at the left. Sandor, and please introduce your name and medium, please.
It's Sandor from Euronews. A question on Slovakia. I haven't seen a very strong congratulating messages from S&D Group so far. I wonder why it is so. If you would like to do it, please feel free. And also, I would like to know, in terms of rule of law criticism and criticism for Mr. Fico for having very much Russian, pro-Russian rhetorics. Will S&D Group have the same standards of criticism towards Fico's Smer party as you had for Viktor Orbán's Fidesz when they were a member of EPP? Thank you.
We go one by one. Okay, fine.
And may I say to the EP team, I got information that apparently the Interactio link doesn't work. Maybe if you could check it. I don't know. Thank you.
Okay. Go on with this totally unexpected question by Sandor regarding the elections in Slovakia. I didn't see that one coming. We will be there for the decisions to be taken regarding Smer or Mr. Fico's positions, and our leader, Stefan Löfven, was outright clear on that matter. We will not take 10 years to drag our feet like it happened with Mr. Orban and the EPP's positions on Mr. Orban, for Mr. Orban in the end to finally remove himself from the EPP. There was a lot of rhetorics in this campaign in Slovakia, let me be clear, a lot of them quite concerning by Mr. Fizzo. There were actions, by the way, from the PES, and we were also there, represented in these meetings of the PES, in which we already addressed these concerns months ago, not even just now after the elections. So, I mean, there's not the singlest question from our side. Breaches on the rule of law, on the possible future government. Breaches on the European support to the Ukrainians on this war of aggression by Russia. Or, I mean, breaches on our positions regarding LGBT rights, to give you just another example. Or coalitions with the far right. I mean, these are very concrete situations that will certainly, as Stefan Löfven said, will eventually could lead to a process of sanctions to this party and, as Stefan Löfven said, eventually even expulsion from the PES. So these are very outright positions from our side. There was the rhetorics in campaign, which was concerning. We addressed it within the party. There's now a possible new government with a program, with coalitions, with concrete actions. The party will not stand still on that. We will not take us 10 years to act. And we at the S&D will be always with the party taking these decisions. And of course, this will be also consequential here. But the most important is that this is, at this stage, being addressed at the party level with full involvement of S&D. And I mean, it also goes for the question on the pro-Russian support, etc., because it's all a package, these actions, these rhetorics, and now we will address it as a whole within the PS, with us fully present and fully involved in the decisions.
Thank you. We go from the left, Eleonora, afterwards Anna, and then Laura.
Hello, I am Eleonora Vasquez from Euractiv. On the same topic, I would like to ask whether the group and the party are discussing the possible expulsion of Smer, if already this is a proposal on the table. Thank you.
This is working as it is. As I said, Stefan Löfven was already very clear, and we are fully with him on that. If this continues, if this goes from rhetoric to actions from a new government, a sanctions process might be started really soon from the side of the PS, and expulsion is one of the consequences that might be at the table. That was immediately referred by our leader, and we are fully aligned with him on that possibility, on the sanctions process as a whole, if it's necessary, and eventually all the consequences might be at the table for possible decision.
Anna, please.
Member.
Sorry, can you please introduce yourself?
Anna Vandensky from Europe Diplomatic. Sorry, I have forgotten to do it. My question is about, now you said about possible sanctions against the party, which is a member of your political family. But my question to you is, do you also envisage a process of sanctions against Slovakia as a member state, or in case the government starts to implement these policies?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Anna. I'm sure there will be, I mean, if this goes on to a point in which there will be blockage on European decisions on regarding the support to Ukraine, etc., I'm sure that this will also go to a point in which the situation of the member state per se will be evaluated. So, but that's a later stage in the process. I mean, you know, we fought here for the rule of law, conditionality in the funds and all of that. We have applied it to Hungary, to Poland. I mean, we have clear basis. Finally, we have clear basis in the European law for some kind of sanctioning, namely because of the rule of law breaches. Those might come in the future, but at this stage, I mean, one thing, as I said, was this rhetorics in campaign. The other one will be about concrete consequences on concrete actions from the government. We, as a political group within our party, have to address immediately this at the party level. That's the first step, and that's the one that will be more immediate from the party if this goes on.
Yes, Efe, please, Laura.
Yeah, Laura Zornoza for EFE. So if this goes on, just to clarify, if this goes on, quote unquote, means if the rhetoric turns into actions. Just to clarify that, if you could say if this is the case. And my second question, I understand that both the suspension and expelling process in the group and the party are actually separate. Could the group take action before the party does? Is this something that you're considering, also since it would probably be a faster process? Thank you.
Yes, when I said rhetoric into actions, that's it, exactly. I mean, it's, as I said, we do not undermine the importance of what was said through the campaign and these pledges in campaign. That's why we already addressed it at the party level with our participation months ago. And there was this proper discussion with SMER and on that matter. Now, if it turns into a program for government, or it turns into coalitions for government, or it turns into concrete action regarding, as I said, internal laws that breach the rule of law, or the support Ukraine, etc., then that means that it turned into concrete action.